Now the understanding, मैंने कहा कि all these are lengths of leaves that I've recorded. This is just a one-time drill that you need to do to understand the concept of standard deviation and variance. You will do it with this data, and I will use some easier data to help you understand. आप इसी डेटा से करेंगे और मैं ये वाला डेटा लूंगा. मैंने 3 लीव्स लिए, सिर्फ 3 लीव्स. एक की लेंथ 15, the other one is 20, and the third one is 25. Okay, now I want you to find the mean of all this data. How do you do that? निकालो, मीन निकाल लिया सबने. What is your mean? here है 19.125. मीन के लिए this is the notation that we use for mean. x और ऊपर बार लगा दिया. अब we have so many values of x, x1, x2, x3, x4, x5, x6, x7 and x8. So can anyone tell me मेरे डेटा का मीन क्या होगा जो मैंने आसान आसान यूज किया हुआ है? What will be the mean of this one? Hmm? 20 is the mean of this one, right? How did you find this? तीनों को ऐड किया, डिवाइड बाय, और डेटा देख के भी पता चलता है. बेटा देखो 15, 20 एंड 25 है, तो सेंटर वैल्यू 20 होगी. इक्वल डिफरेंस है, 5 ज्यादा 5 कम, जो मीन इज 20. ओके. नाउ अंडरस्टैंड स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन. नाउ आई टेल यू x माइनस x बार. व्हाट एम आई आस्किंग यू टू डू? हर वैल्यू में से मीन को माइनस कर दो एंड नोट इट डाउन. दिस इज जस्ट अ वन टाइम ट्रिक and trust me, it will help you in the long run. X minus x bar means every value minus mean. Note it down, just a one time. X minus x bar. The more organized your data is, the more easier it will be for you. I will also do it with the data that I have. मेरा एक -5 आ गया, एक 0 आ गया और एक 5 आ गया. Let me know when you are done. All these values that you have found, can I call all of them deviations from mean? All these values that you have found, can I call all of them deviations from mean? कह सकता हूँ नहीं कह सकता? What does the word deviation mean? Deviate करना, what does it mean? It's an English word. If you're going straight, if you're on a straight path, and if you move away from there, that is called deviation. So yes, away from an actual thing is called a deviation. So can I call all of them deviations from mean? That is what you have done. You have subtracted. सबको बताया कि you're telling me कौन mean से कितना दूर है. Is that right? I have also done this with my data. My data is -5, 0 and 5. These are my deviations. If I find the average of these deviations for my data, what will be the average? 0. But is my deviation 0? Deviation 0 कब होती? Understand this thing. If I would have had this data, then deviation would have been 0. But that is not the case. So if I am getting deviation as 0, that means there is a problem in calculation. Deviation 0 आ क्यों नहीं है? क्योंकि some of the deviations are positive and some of the deviations are negative. And when I am finding the average of these deviations, the positives and negatives are cancelling each other out, and they are showing me as if the data is not deviating at all. So how to compensate for this? So how do we do that? Very good. If we square everything, then the negatives will no more be negative. So again, we can square everything. So square all these values that you have. साथ साथ I am telling you mean के लिए I am writing something down. Understand the notation rather than memorizing the formula. This is called summation notation. किस चीज का sum लेना है? All the values of x and divided by n. This notation means summation notation. Sum of x divided by n karte hain, sum of all data. That is how we find the mean. So can you square all the values and then find their average? Yes, bete. How will you find their average then? You will add all these values and you will divide it by number of readings. Do this once. This is called variance. What is variance? You just found variance that if you took the sum of, what did you take the sum of? Or se dekhna. I am showing you step by step. You took the sum of x minus x bar you took the sum of this and you divided by n. That gave you variance. Is that right? And when you underroot the entire variance, you get what we call standard deviation. Standard deviation, agar verbally बताऊं, standard deviation is an estimate of how much your every value is deviating from the mean. Standard deviation is an estimate of how much your every value is deviating from the mean. Is that what you did? Yes. Yeah, variance or standard deviation. 49 point something variance aa raha hoga. 49.60 is variance. So इसको under root किया तो standard deviation. So you are telling me when you quote standard deviation is 7 point something, you're telling me on average my every value is deviating 7 point something from the mean. Observe your data. Is that the case? Yes, it is. Is this clear or not? Yes, class. Now there is another way to find the same standard deviation. Square all your original values. Again, just do this once. Square all your data. हर value का square करो. Find your x squares. This is again just a one-time drill to understand. Once we'll understand it, we'll just be using formula. Understood variance? Another way to find standard deviation or variance is square all your values. हर value को square करो. Do it. Square all your values. उनका average निकालो. And subtract you add all the squares and you divide by n minus the square of mean. इसकी पूरी जो derivation है कि how both of these mean the same thing. I've posted it. I'll share it with you people as well. Both of these will give you the same result. Observe, do they give you the same result? Square all your values, find their average by adding all of them, all the squares and dividing by n, and then subtract the square of mean. You'll get the same value. Check kar sakte. Again, the formula will be provided. You just need to understand it once, that how do we do it and why are we doing it. Clarity. Obviously, when we practice more questions, so or clear ho jayega. But understand, both will you the same answer. Understood? Understand, we are not squaring the sum. We are taking the sum of the squares. There is a difference between both. I'm not squaring the sum. I'm taking the sum of squares. This is how we get our standard deviation. The formula will be provided. You don't need to memorize anything. You just need to understand what these notations mean and how did we get this entire data and how did we analyze it. It is just telling you on average how much your every value original data key is deviating from the mean. So if I look at this data, you're telling me your standard deviation is 7, right? So I'll say on average, your every value is deviating about 7 from the mean. Is that the case? और से देखो about 7 from the mean. कुछ बहुत ज़्यादा deviate कर रही हैं, कुछ कम कर रही हैं, but if you take the average of these deviations, it is just about 7. Getting it or not? This is just a one-time drill. ये हर दफा नहीं करनी होती है. Just one time to understand what does mean and what does standard deviation mean and how do we find it. Is this clear or not?